Hello, my dear students. Today's topic of discussion is information system security and disaster management. See, here there are two things. One is information system security, and second thing is disaster management. Looking at the first part, I would just like to repeat it that we have already done it in the class information system security, in which I told you about the threats of using technology and what could be the solutions for that. So we this is the security part, right? So what could be the threats to security? You have done it, like there could be different types of attacks, like phishing is there, denial of service is there. So this is information system security, and how you as an organization should ensure that information system security is there. So it is concerned with the technological part, information system security. Now coming to the second part, that is disaster management, we are going to do that. So in exam you can get, there could be two or three ways in which you can get the question. One could be simple question of information system security and disaster management, and the other could be disaster management in isolation only, and third one could be information system security. I'll explain all the types of questions that you can get in exam. Let me just discuss what is disaster management, because first part we have already discussed in the class. So after the completion of this topic, I'll be telling you the types of questions that you can get, right? So first thing, even in this disaster management, there are two words, disaster and the second one is management. So what is a disaster? Just think about a second. What is a disaster? Definitely it does not give a very good answer. I mean, it does not give you a picture of a very good situation. Not a good answer, but not a good situation. Disaster is something, if you can't explain it in words, or you cannot give appropriate meaning of disaster, but one thing surely comes to your mind, that this is a situation which is not favorable, which is not a good situation. So the now a second question arises, is any unfavorable situation, is any unkind situation a disaster for anybody? The answer is surely no. Why? See, if there is rain, okay, this is not a disaster. If there is heavy rain, you say, and you are not able to reach to your destination, then it is stopping you to reach to your destination, even then it is not a disaster. But of course, if the rain is up to such an extent that it is leading to destruction, right, buildings are destroyed and your crops are destroyed, then it is a disaster. So technically speaking, let me just explain you what is a disaster. So it is, just look at this, any event resulting in direct denial or stoppage. Denial means when you deny, when you are not able to perform your work, of essential business functions. Keep in mind that denial should be related to your essential business functions. There are n number of activities which are done in a business. All of those activities are not equally important, right? So it is direct denial or stoppage of essential business functions for considerable period of time is called disaster. Looking at this meaning, please make sure that all these three conditions, that is why I have divided it into parts. If you read this meaning from your book, you will see the entire sentence of it, but I have divided into three parts because all the three components are essential to be called any situation as disaster. Let me put it very simple, that any situation to be called as disaster must fulfill these three criteria. Let's just take an example. If there is any stoppage of any working of, and of course it is related to essential business functions, but it is not for a considerable period of time, it is not called a disaster. Disaster is something which is for a considerable period of time. For example, if a bank is not able to perform its services due to the reason that the electricity goes off just for 2 or 3 minutes and the computers are shut down, this is not a disaster. But let's suppose if there is a problem due to the reason that the servers all over the the branches of the bank are down and bank is not able to perform its functions, let's suppose for 1 or 2 days. That is you might say that it's just a matter of 1 or 2 days, but no, it is not a matter of just 1 or 2 days, but it is a matter of 1 or 2 days. That is a big time. So this is a disaster. Now again, another example, that banking although these days banking you can do 24/7, like you can do it from your mobile also, and if you want to withdraw money you can get it from ATM also. That is a separate thing, but there are prescribed banking hours, right? So during those prescribed banking hours, let's suppose the bank is from 9 to 5. This is that you can get the services, physical services. You can physically go to the bank, and even during these hours there is a time specified in which during which the banks deal with the customers. Now after the bank hours are over, right, the bank is not going to be opened up. Second thing is, bank on the holidays and on all gazetted holidays and your weekly holidays, the banks are closed. Is it as a disaster? Because the first thing is stoppage. See, it is not stop, it is stoppage. That is, there is continuity. Why I am stressing on the meaning of disaster is that you just to avoid any kind of confusion, you should not understand this thing as, suppose if their work is stopped due to some reason, that is not a disaster. If there is lunch break going on, so if you go to the bank, they would not entertain you, and they would say that this is the lunch time. They are denying to deliver you services, and this is not questionable. You cannot question them because these are lunch hours. So it is not a disaster. Okay, so I hope you must have understood the meaning of the disaster, right? And the second component here is disaster management. We are concerned with what is disaster management, and my dear students, you all know it, that whenever the word management comes, anywhere where the word management comes, it is concerned with doing all the functions of management, right from planning till controlling. And at different places the names are different, but the thing remains the same, the functions remains the same. So disaster recovery, disaster management is also the same. That is planning your activities, doing your activities to manage the disaster. So before doing this is disaster recovery planning. We call it as disaster recovery planning, which is a part of disaster management. And before doing this, you have to do business impact analysis. Business impact analysis means you must be able to foresee the things, and you must be able to understand what impact is it going to make on your business, what are the critical areas, what things are going to be affected. So that is a disaster business impact analysis. The focus here is on business impact analysis. Let me just give you another example why I am saying critical areas or important areas. So just take an example. Suppose when any cricketer is playing a cricket, right? So what are the things which are covered? The hands, the cricketer wears the helmet, the legs are covered with pads. So these are the areas where you think that could be, if a ball hits to a person, suppose it hits the head of a cricketer, it is going to hit him badly. So this area is covered. This is the area of risk, and which could lead to, if you hit it hardly, it is going to be a disaster. It could be a threat to the life also. So my dear students, please understand that whenever you do disaster management or disaster recovery planning, I told you that there are different names. You must understand what is the critical area. I'm saying it again and again. What is a critical area? What is the important area which is going to be affected? Because otherwise all your planning is going to be wasted. So let's just come to this disaster recovery planning. Different threats can destroy information available within an organization. See, the asset, all the organizations have asset. We say that there are certain intangible things which differentiate one organization from the other, and one is the human resources, and another very important thing which differentiates one organization from the other is the information that you have. Information is anything, it is your asset, the information that you are storing. When you have extracted meaning from your data, that becomes the information, and anybody who destroys your information, that is a big disaster, right? So, and in the times when we are storing all the information in our computers and that is destroyed, see, this destruction or this disaster, I'm not saying that always it is going to be intentional, that somebody is doing some bad thing with your computer. It could be unintentional also. Your information could be destroyed and could lead to destruction or disaster due to certain factors. Like, see, the first factor is natural disasters that could destroy your information, right? Then is hardware and software failures, virus attack, this is intentional, act of terrorism, this is also intentional. So what do the organizations need to do? They need to plan in advance to counter the disasters. You are not going to be successful if you are waiting for the disaster to happen. We are not welcoming the disaster, we are just preparing ourselves. We take a number of precautionary measures. When you jump from a height, you take the help of a parachute. You keep the things ready with you just to cover your risk. So after identification, the next task is to ensure availability of adequate safeguards to mitigate the risk. It's not just sufficient to see that today it is going to rain. That is not sufficient. What is required is that you must make appropriate measures, right? So this was just an example. So what I'm trying to say here is that after you have done all the things, the next thing is to see that whether you are having adequate safeguards or not. That is the basic reason of identification. So this is the process. If you see, this is awareness, preparation, testing and recovery. These are the names. This is the other name which is given to all the functions of management. So awareness, coming to the first part, that is awareness. And if you see the first line, very first line, what is written here? It is awareness about critical activities. I am stressing this word again and again because if you put your attention, if you keep on concentrating on unnecessary things, then you are wasting your time. So awareness about critical activities, systems and processes of organization, so that you can concentrate on those things only. For example, the front end operations in banks are given more importance as compared to back end operations. So the thing here is that like the resources like trained manpower, infrastructure, etc., what are necessary for sustaining these activities are identified. Awareness means that, as I said earlier also, that something should not come to you as a surprise. If somebody has hacked your data, you should not think, oh, I was not aware of this thing, that somebody is going to hack my data. So you should be prepared. I'm not saying that you should be prepared. I'm saying that you should make arrangements, you should design your activities in such manner that nobody is able to hack your computers. These things I have discussed earlier in information system security, in computer audit and in information system audit also. So then what should be you aware about? You should be aware about financial and legal issues. Ignorance of law is not an excuse. I have explained you many times. You cannot say that I was not aware about the laws. So the warranty, the terms and conditions, all these things must be properly documented, filed and secured in safe custody. Then use of only licensed version of softwares. Piracy is not legal. piracy is not at all legal, and you cannot say that I was not aware. So you should be using only the licensed version of the software instead of downloading it from some websites, and no copying of licensed software must be done. One thing I would like to quote here, that suppose even if you are not copying anybody, you are not downloading anything, and you are not involving in piracy, even then there could be a situation when you are landing yourself into disaster. How? If you have certain proper documentation, you have, although you have proper documentation of something, but you have not acquired your copyright, that means you are giving the right to anybody to obtain your material and copy it n number of times. Then what would happen? If anybody is taking your data, you cannot sue the person, because you have not reserved the copyrights. So this, you should be aware of this thing also, that you should be aware of your rights also. Then second thing after awareness is preparation. Now you need to prepare yourself. Once you have identified the critical activities, now you need to prepare yourself. So what is it concerned with? It is concerned with core and support team consisting of skilled and trained personnel. You need to train your person, or you need to hire trained person. That could be your choice, and that depends upon situation to situation. So human resources, as we all know, are the most valuable asset for any organization. So it is equally vulnerable also, like they are having all your information, and they could use it in a bad way also. So they should be properly trained, and apart from generating computing techniques, this will help. If they are trained properly, if they are kept as a part of an organization, then it would help in avoiding disastrous situation. Then is availability of alternate recovery sites, which are known as disaster recovery sites. See, whenever you use computer, right, you save your information, and we always say that you must save your information at some safe place in computer. Like, it is not a good decision to save your information on the desktop. If something happens to your computer, desktop is the first place from where your data is, you're not going to get back your data. So we say that it is safe to save your data in D drive or E drive, in drives basically. Or the second method, if you want to be safe also, then it is said that you must save your data in pen drive, and even safest method is that you mail the data. So see, the level of information that we are having is very, very small as compared to the level of information that the banks have. If we are taking so much precautions, then think about the precautions that the banks have to take. Suppose if something bad happens, if the website is hacked or something like that happens, then you must have availability of disaster recovery sites. The example which I have given you of pen drives or some other things, those are basically, you are having a backup of your data. Same way, organizations are also required to have the disaster recovery sites. Then you need to have daily backup of data. So you suppose there is some like I have given you example of earthquakes. When suppose this happens or some bad situation occurs, you must be able to get a backup of data. It's not that your computer is destroyed, so your information is destroyed. You are concerned with information, not with the computer. Then documentation should also be there, should always be there. Documentation for disaster recovery plan. We know that people may come, people may go, but the company is going forever, the business is going forever. Now let's suppose if God forbidden something happens to a person who was in charge of all these things, the person is no more, then what would happen? The secret is with that person only? No. Disaster recovery plan, it should be properly documented, and if suppose some other person comes, he should be able to continue the same plan. The next part after the awareness and preparation part is testing. it is very important when you introduce something on a full-fledged scale. It is important to test it to see what it is going to give you, what result is it going to give you. So whenever you, suppose when you buy anything from the market, you check all the things, you test all the things. Likewise, in case of disaster recovery also, suppose you are maintaining disaster recovery site only, so it is simulating the disaster condition. One method could be simulating. Simulating means copying the disaster situation. So you are supposing that something unfavorable happens to the main system, and will your daily backup data and your disaster recovery sites, will these be able to give you the results or not? Second is mock testing. It is just again the same thing when you are replicating the actual situation. Then is the recovery part. This is a chart. All these, I'll just give you examples of a few things and these will be clear to you. Recovery part. The recovery part is concerned with identifying the factors and then taking the recovery. I'll just explain a few and rest will be clear to you. See here, this is the reason. You basically, I told you na, that you need to identify the critical areas. So this could arise out of external factors. This could arise out of data corruption, then arising out of failure of hardware and networking. Then there could be technological factors, human factors. So you need to identify these areas and then accordingly you make recovery plans. Suppose these are the areas that you identify. This is not an exhaustive list. There could be other reasons also, but you are just preparing a list. Suppose this is an external factor, external, which is not in your hands, which are beyond your control, outside the organization. So if there is a disaster due to breakdown of fire, then what you need to do, you need to identify the causes of fire and then you make plan for preventive measures. That is the best thing that you can do. If it is flood or tsunami, then you must, it depends upon these two things, flood or earthquake. See, flood or earthquake are the kinds of situations. If you are if you cannot control them, what you can do is that these are concerned with making the structure or design of your building in such a way that these are not affected by even small shocks, right? And especially there are certain flood prone area, or there are certain areas which easily are affected by these natural calamities. Then what is important is the location of your building. Like, it is not advisable to have your building by a seaside, because that is going to affect you. So structural design of the building, it should be very strong. So then is power failure, then you should make suitable arrangements. Communication or connectivity failure could be a reason, so you should make periodical checking to ensure no interruption of connectivity. Likewise, you will see that these are the reasons. Data corruption, so you should make accordingly. You can read all these points, and if in case you have any problem, you can ask me. These are simple points. I'm just scrolling out all these points. So if there is lack of data access and control mechanism, data access control mechanism means you have not devised proper control mechanism relating to the access of data. So what would you do? You would put a stoppage or a limit on who can access the data. So actually most of these points are covered in the class only in information security factors. Right. So let me now just come to the point that what kind of questions can you get in exam. One simple question could be relating to information system security. That is a separate topic we have done. Disaster management, which I have explained you today. And suppose if a question comes relating to information system security and disaster management, in that question you need to explain that how, if you are not maintaining, if you are not taking proper precautions relating to the security of information system, it could lead to disaster, not disaster management, how it could lead to disaster and what measures you should take. Like, if you are saying, I'm repeating the question could be that what could be the disasters to information system security, then you will not, besides explaining the general meaning of disaster, or besides explaining what is disaster, you will write that if you're not taking proper precautions relating to information system security, then it is going to be disastrous situation. And how you can manage that, you will write all these points only: awareness, preparation, testing, recovery, all these points keeping in mind information system security. So after going through this topic, if you have any doubt, please ask me. Thank you.